Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta. Anthony coming from Minnesota. I'm coming from South Florida, where the Panthers, heading into tonight's game against the Edmonton Oilers, hold a 2-1 series advantage. And Anthony, first of all, how have you been? It's a big week for you and your family.
It is a big week. Wedding week has officially started. Family has started to arrive. So it's already the buzz of excitement is starting. It's going to be fun. We had dinner Sunday night, had Margot's brother and sister-in-law arrived Tuesday. So we had some dinner, had a little golf match yesterday. Vinny arrived early this morning. So it's going to be fun. We're looking forward to it. Gianni gets married on Saturday up at the Abbey at St. John's. First of our children to get married. So it's exciting, and it's always fun when we get our family together for anything, but this one should be a little extra special.
So it's 7:30 in the morning your time, 8:30 my time. I assume that Vinny's not going to get up specifically to do Vinny's thoughts this week, or will he get up this early?
He just sent him his flight actually arrived at 6:00. He took a red eye from Vegas last night.
Nice.
Just so he could get his thoughts into the show. So he did send thoughts. We'll get to those a little bit later, but he's arrived.
He's not going to come on personally.
No, Gianni picked him up at the airport at the crack of dawn. They must have arrived at 6 something, because I got a text from him at 6:04 with his thoughts for the podcast.
All right. And we'll get to it.
Yeah, we have, we'll be all connected with Vinny. I think he was going to try to take about a 3-hour nap, and then we're connecting for some breakfast. We've got another golf match this afternoon, and then AJ flies in later on this evening.
Okay. Well, tell Vinny he should have committed to the bid and stayed up and done it in person.
I should have told him that, actually. I hadn't really thought about it. I should have said, just show up and join the show in person.
Yep. Now, you are known as like a very emotionless person. That's how I would describe you. I don't even know that you have feelings. What do you think you will be like on wedding day in that ceremony? Do you think you're going to get a little choked up or no?
Yeah, I think for sure I will. I have emotions. I have a lot of feelings.
You have a lot of feelings?
I do have a lot of feelings. And yeah, this will be it'll be emotional for sure. And it's a special time, and I'm really excited for Gianni. She's really happy, and she's excited about this. Just this, I mean, you know Gianni well. She's probably in the line of work that is as fitting for her personality as just about anybody. She's an elementary school teacher. That's just what she was cut out to be, and I think, you had like a bride and a mom are the two other things that come to mind with her. She's got a happiness to her right now that I think is really cool. And yes, you guys all think I have no feelings and emotions just because I'm able to not let them affect my mood, maybe, but I do have them.
Okay. All right. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Well, congratulations to you and Margot and the whole family. I wish I could be there. It's just so funny when the date came out last summer, how I already told you guys that I probably wouldn't be able to do it. And sure enough, game 5 of the series is actually going to be on, by the way, I said I said this was game 3 tonight. I think it's game 4. So I don't know why I said that, but game 5 of the series happens to be on wedding day. So, a lot of travel coming up here for me, but congratulations to you and the family. And
if only the Panthers would have completed a sweep, then you would have been able to join us.
I know, good point. And I don't know. I don't know what to make of tonight. We'll talk a little bit more about the series. I'll tell you what, it's been a fun series. It's getting long with all the off days, but I will say last night had a great night. Went to a restaurant. I don't know if you've been to here down here called Louis Bassi's. Have you been here? Been there?
No.
Oh, my God. It's incredible Italian restaurant, incredible atmosphere. It's like a European courtyard in the back, just awesome restaurant. Half the NHL was there. In fact, so it was my birthday dinner. By the way, it's my birthday, Anthony. I'm sure you would have figured it out by the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday.
So 8 of us went to dinner. and really fun night. But referees were in the house. People from the league, lots of people at this restaurant. So it is sort of the big restaurant, big Italian restaurant now on Las Olas. You absolutely will love it if we're here together next season. We gotta check it out. It's your type of place. Gigantic wine list. I didn't pay a cent. Nice enough for my colleagues for the second year in a row. It's the biggest scam in hockey. Me every year having my birthday in the middle of the Stanley Cup Final, and all my colleagues always buy me dinner. Spit and Chicklets, Paul Bissonnette and Colby Armstrong, those guys sent me over some dessert, so that was nice of them. So really fun night, but it's been a great series and great time just with all these off nights, Anthony. It's, as you know, I mean, part of the fun on the road is really commiserating with your colleagues and talking shop and talking life, and from that standpoint, this has been a tremendous final.
Yeah, well, it's one of my favorite parts of the travel for sure. And although I will say, and you made a quick mention of it already, that anytime you end up with 2 off days between games, it feels like it adds a week. Mm-hmm. You get in that rhythm where you're every other day, game day, off day, game day, off day. And on those off days, it's practice and prep. And as soon as you add a second off day, I've always felt like it's like adding a 4th day in a city in a baseball series. The 3-game series, you're just in the rhythm. You play night game, day game, travel day. And as soon as you add a 4th game, it's like you've added an extra week to being there. And I've always felt like when you look at the Wild schedule at the start of a season and you say, okay, well, now we have 2 off days on this trip here, that it's great at times because you always feel like you do get a day off. If you have 2 days off between games, then you do actually get a day off because you're not prepping for the next night's game. But at the same time, it feels like it's forever when you have 2 days between games.
Yeah, and especially when it feels like you're dissecting the series. I mean, it's multiple press conferences. Yes, you have the end of the game, then you have 2 days ago, yesterday's Val. Now this morning when you go to the morning skate, ask the same questions. It's just like, all right, drop the puck already. First 2 games of the series, Anthony, let's talk about it. And we will talk Minnesota Wild during the second segment and Marco Rossi and some of the stuff going on there and where that's at. But let's talk about the series, Anthony. I mean, first 2 games, as good a hockey as there were, overtime games, double overtime games. But to your point, it feels like a month ago. I mean, those games in Edmonton feel like a century ago. Then 2 days ago, really 3 now, the Panthers absolutely smoke the Oilers 6-1. The Oilers just lost their scruples on the ice. Took 85 minutes in penalties, were 2-handing guys, put Florida on the power play 11 times. The game got out of hand when for the most part, when things got really dire there in the third period and they were doing a bunch of ridiculous stuff on the ice. But even in the first period, I mean, take 4 penalties, that's way too much. And the Panthers just took them out of the game bright and early in that game. Draisaitl didn't even have a shot attempt. What did you think of game 3?
Yeah, it was Florida just took it to them in every way, shape, or form. And to be honest, I mean, Edmonton's fortunate that this series isn't 3-0. I mean, as good as they made some plays at the end of games, but I felt like Florida could have very easily won both games in Edmonton. And if not for a little Edmonton magic with the late in the game to get the equalizer, I thought game 3 was more indicative of what I thought you'd see from these 2 teams. I just think Florida's the better team. The only thing I would say is in playoff series, a lot of times the last game, people overreact sometimes to what happened most recently. And when a team wins a game like that, you feel like, okay, well, how's the other team ever going to win with how one-sided that game was? And sometimes by the same token, if you're on the winning side, you feel like, they're never going to beat us now because look at how much better we were than them. A lot of things change from game to game. And I just thought Edmonton, a lot of the things that I expected to get exposed for Edmonton throughout the playoffs got exposed in that game. And it's really the first time that's happened since early in the LA series when they were down 2-0 and should have been down 3-1 if LA just manages the final 20 seconds of game 4. And those were the games where I thought Edmonton looked like I've expected them to look all playoffs, where they couldn't keep the puck out of their net. They were the same lackadaisical defensive club that we saw all year. Then all of a sudden they kicked it into gear for 2 rounds and they were a machine. And they still are capable of that because no matter what's happening in the game, they do still have 2 of, if not the 2 greatest players in the world. And they are capable of stealing a game, of taking over a game. And so it wouldn't shock me if Edmonton came out and played much better in game 4, but I still think Florida's significantly the better, deeper club.
Well, to your point, I mean, look at their third line this series, Anthony. I mean, Marchand, 3 goals, including the double overtime winner and obviously the shorthanded goal. Then the first goal the other night became the first player ever in a Stanley Cup Final that had an overtime goal followed by an opening minute goal. It scored 3 goals in a row, by the way, in the series. Lundell, 3 assists, has been absolutely sensational. And Luosterainen, 3 assists, has been absolutely sensational. And we're not even talking about, the guys that led them last year, the Reinhardts, the Barkovs, the Kachucks. So far in this series, it's the third line, it's Verhaeghe, but even Ekblad and Forsling have been up and down. They're getting great play from guys like Mikkola and Jones. But if you really look at this team right now, to your point on depth, right now the big guys haven't really had to lead them yet. And if this team wins another cup, that could be a big reason. It's just, again, what adding guys like Seth Jones and Brad Marchand did to this lineup.
I think the Brad Marchand addition is going to go down as one of the all-time great deadline pickups. And there was a little unknown with him at the time with his injury status. But when you look at what Florida had to give up to get him and what all the other moves that were made at the deadline this year, it's been an incredible fit. He's made an incredible impact, and his willingness to talk to you and give you good quotes aside, he's been an unbelievable addition to that club.
Yeah, no, he has been. And to your point yesterday, even held court with a couple of us for like a half hour. He's just been a pleasure, and he is going to make a fortune this offseason. My gut says they still re-sign Bennett and probably let Ekblad and Marchand go. Because Marchand, remember when he popped in this league, he had signed the big deal, but he hasn't made the money that a lot of superstars like him. I mean, this guy's a future Hall of Famer. He hasn't made the money that a lot of guys, in his position would have. He sort of signed that deal right before he turned into the stud that he is. I think he's, in what could be his last contract, I think he's going to be looking for the longest term at the highest dollars. I really think he can get 4 times 9. I really do. I think their teams, he has absolutely shown this offseason or this postseason, Anthony, that maybe, the rumors that he was starting to get a little bit, that father time is catching up is especially if you put him with young kids that seem to be the perfect fit. It's proven that he could still play this game. And so I just genuinely think that he is going to probably leave. We will see, and probably go somewhere again up north. Wouldn't it be something if he signed in Toronto? I mean, that would be unbelievable considering how he's done the Leafs in many times in the playoffs.
Just as he had been a thorn in the side of Florida, or at least a pain in the ass for Florida. But I don't know. You might be right with what he ends up getting. I don't think I'd want to be the team committing 4 times 9.
Mm-hmm. Trust me, he's getting over 8.
Yeah, and he might, and you might be exactly right. Somebody will probably pay him that. I just don't think I would be the one that would want to. I can't imagine 4 years from now him being a $9 million player, but maybe I'm wrong. We'll see.
Yeah, no, to your point, I mean, you're right. You better, he needs to go, if you're going to give him those dollars, you need to know that your window is very short and he's going to help you win a cup in the probably early part of that term. And I think that, if you're at Toronto, it makes all the sense in the world to go after him. I think there are a lot of teams going after the same players. There are not a lot of great players available this offseason. And we'll get into more of that in a little bit, especially when we talk about Rossi. But I think that somebody is going to pay him significant dollars. And same thing with Bennett. I mean, Bennett is, he really wants to stay, but as his stock continues to go up, he leads the playoffs with 14 playoff goals. I think everybody knows that he's the type of guy that if you again want to go on a playoff run, he's the type of person that you want in your lineup. Somebody's going to give him significant dollars, and maybe who knows, maybe eventually down the line regret that. But he's going to have to make a big decision. Do you stay here for less money, 7 or 8 million, or do you go somewhere and chase 9 or 10? When you probably know that somebody's going to go and make you a big time offer. We'll see where that goes. To your point, Anthony, I don't know if you noticed, you've been getting a lot of shade the last week or so with McDavid and Draisaitl having good starts to the series. Weren't very good in game 3, but games 1 and 2. People throwing stuff at you that you can't win with them. You wouldn't want them on the Wild. What do you say back to those people?
Well, people have taken this a little differently than the way it was intended to be said. Clearly, I believe that Connor McDavid is the most talented player in the world. I still, if I was starting a team, I would take Nathan MacKinnon over McDavid. But McDavid's the most talented player in the world, and I've always felt that, and I've said, I just don't think you can win with a roster that commits so much to the two of those guys because of what it does to the rest of your roster. And it's proven true for most of their career in Edmonton. Now, but last year I said, look, they went a lot further than I ever thought they would go with their team built like that. So even though they didn't win, I was wrong on what I thought about that. And I still believe that. They've gone further this year than I thought they would go with those guys. And there's not a guy that has finished as efficiently from one spot on the ice other than Alex Ovechkin than Leon Draisaitl in his career. It's amazing how he finishes from that same low circle spot on his off wing. It's unbelievable the efficiency with which he scores from that spot. And
yep.
They've had another incredible run, even though I don't believe they're going to win again this year. And maybe it is to some degree because their roster is built around those two guys and how it affects the rest of the roster. But you can't fault either one of those guys. They've been terrific in both of these playoff runs, and they're the reason why Edmonton still has a chance in this series down 2-1.
Yep. Well, first of all, we have
but the shorter version of that is I haven't. I know you'll be shocked to know I haven't really seen or heard much of or any of the comments directed at me.
Yeah, I know you haven't noticed. That's why I figured I'd let you know. But we do have a title of the show, Anthony LaPanta, quote, "I was wrong." So perfect name for the show.
It's like the 10th time I've said that about Leon Draisaitl, about my opinion on Draisaitl. I mean, I kept saying it last year during the playoffs. I was like, look, I still don't think they're going to win, but they have won a lot more than I ever thought. I never thought this team would reach the finals these 2 years in a row. I thought both years they would have been knocked out in the first couple of rounds. And as we talked a couple of weeks ago, what's amazing about this run is I believe they're out in the first round if Quentin Byfield chips a puck off the glass with 20 seconds left in game 4. It's crazy how things have changed since then.
Yep, and I believe the Wild would been in the second round if Gus Nyquist dragged his leg over that damn blue line. So to your point, the one thing I'll just say about Edmonton is that you do wonder where they'd be in this series, and this series is far from over. Trust me, we'll see tonight. But if Zach Hyman's healthy, that changes things. Their blue line, though, is the one that I would thought was the biggest concern coming into the series, and I do think they're starting to get exposed with Florida's forecheck. I think John Klingberg is proving that he's John Klingberg again. Was absolutely awful last game. Wouldn't shock me if he scratched tonight. And Troy Stetcher gets back in. And then Stuart Skinner is becoming Stuart Skinner again, or was that just I don't blame him entirely for last game by any stretch. But I think, my guess is they give him one more shot. But if they lose tonight, it could be Calvert Pickard's net starting on Saturday night in Edmonton. We will see. Let's take a quick break, Anthony, and we'll come back and we'll talk Minnesota Wild. Do you want sparkling dishes, soft laundry, and crisp, clean water straight from the tap? Well, you can get all of that with a Kinetico system from Aquarius Home Services. And it's refreshingly affordable. Enjoy worry-free water throughout your home for less than what you spend on a cup of coffee each day. And now is the time to upgrade. Right now, for a limited time, you can save up to 25% on a new Kinetico water treatment system. And you get started by scheduling your free water analysis with Aquarius Home Services. How do you do this? Well, visit AquariusHomeservices.com for details. That's AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended. And don't forget to mention that Russo sent you.
Deer hunting season is here, and it's time to own your odds with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. With the Hunt app, you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, tracks, and much more, all at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt. That's onxmaps.com/hunt to sign up today.
Back here, worst seats in the house, Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta. We will have a live show, by the way, around June 24th or June 25th. So pay attention to our social media in the next podcast, and we will announce where that is. But we are now just, it's going to either be at Tuttle's, LC's, or Split Rock. So, Anthony, just so you know, we are having one live show this month right before the draft, and we'll be talking about the Stanley Cup Finals, maybe a Rossi trade by then, who knows, and maybe some draft and free agency previews. So, all right, Anthony, what's going on with Rossi is pretty much the entirety of my Twitter account when I asked for questions yesterday. And what's going on is not different from last week. They've had a couple phone calls, has not gone well. They haven't bridged the gap the way that I understand it. It's still, I don't know. To me, the pressure is starting to get on the Wild because I am starting to get the impression, Anthony, I don't know if this is going to surprise you or not. I don't think the market for Marco right now has really materialized the way the Wild had hoped. And I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One, I think everybody is curious. There are a lot of teams that want to get number two centers. I think there are a lot of teams curious on what's going to happen with Sam Bennett and some of the other guys. And then the Marco would be, once we figure out what's going on with those players, if you're another team, then maybe you circle back on Marco. But the way that I understand it is that there are a lot of players, a lot of teams lukewarm on Marco, which is shocking. And this is why, again, I'll go back to what I've been saying to you the last couple of months. I really think the Wild didn't do themselves favors by the way that they treated him in the playoffs. I think his value has been devalued. I think there are a lot of people saying, well, if the Wild don't think that he's a playoff player, do we? He has 60 points, 24 goals, and then they throw him on the fourth line and don't think that they could win with him in the postseason. And now they want to trade him. What are the red flags there? And I think there are a lot of teams worried about that. When I talk to people around the league, teams around the league, that's the first thing I hear is people asking me, well, what happened in the playoffs? Why did they throw him on the fourth line? What are the red flags here? This is what other teams are asking me. And if that's the case, I don't know if Bill's getting a lot of traction. I do think the Vancouver Canucks, Anthony, is one team that has a decent amount of interest in him. But like a team like Montreal really wants a number two center. I hear has no interest. And I'm starting to hear that with other teams that maybe want number two center. So it's just going to be really interesting where this goes here because the Wild want to get a player for him. They don't want to get futures. If Bill Guerin's going to take 60 points off his roster, he's going to want to get a player of requisite value back. And I don't know where this is going, at least right now. Obviously, they got, 18 days until June, until they really got to make a total decision before potential offer sheet. But right now, I don't know if it's starting to materialize the way that the Wild had hoped.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. But I also think when you start to talk about other teams, and for sure you have to do your homework whenever you see something happen like what happened to Marco's playing time in the playoffs. You have to do your homework. You have to do your checking. You have to do your digging to find out, well, wait a minute, was there something or is there something about which we should be concerned? But general managers all have to make their own evaluation of players. And every single GM doesn't look at players exactly the same way. And so if you're a GM, you've seen Marco, and most of them have seen Marco enough, I think, to know what kind of player he probably is. And now they just have to decide, is that the player that fits for us? Because you never would look at it. Think of how many times a guy has been in a spot and we've said what he needs is a change of scenery. Well, the change of scenery isn't the actual scenery. It's that he needs to have a different set of eyes evaluating him as a player, putting him in different spots, giving him different opportunities, ways they see it fitting with their team, their organization. And, so there might be some owners out there right now or general managers out there now that look at it and say, well, if the Wild thought this of him, maybe I can give less to get him. But I really don't think there are very many GMs that would say, my opinion of this player has changed because of what his current GM's opinion of him is or might be. As long as they know it's not something off ice or personality type related. And that's not the case with Marco. So I think I just think there's a lot of guys who look at him the same way you and I have looked at him, the same way the Wild have probably looked at him, where you're just not sure if he can be the go-to guy on a championship contender type team. He can be I think what you know about him right now is he can be a very good supplemental type center. I still think he can be a top 6 center, but other teams, they might, if your number one center is a highly skilled, maybe a little bit smaller guy, do you want your second line center to be more like a Joel Eriksson type than a Marco Rossi type? I just think he's not a no-brainer with how he fits with a lot of teams.
Yeah. It's funny. You always hear, and they're not the same player, trust me. Okay. But you always hear these comparisons of Brad Marchand and Marco Rossi. And let me give you the reason why. Look at their first couple of years in the league. It's actually freaky. Okay. So Brad Marchand, first year in the league, 20 games, 1 assist. Marco Rossi, 21 games, 1 assist. Brad Marchand's his first full year in the league, 21 goals, 41 points in 72 games. Marco Rossi, 21 goals, 40 points in 82 games. So 10 more games, same goals, 1 less point. Then Marco Rossi, his second full year in the league, 24 goals, 60 points in 82 games. Brad Marchand, 28 and 55. So 5 less points and actually 6 less games. But the path is interesting. Now, again, the one thing that Brad has is he wants to engage in those really nasty battles. He's a playoff type performer. The question is, can Marco get there? But it is kind of, to me, what it is a bit of a cautionary tale to the Minnesota Wild that you don't want to give up on a guy so early. If you look at Brad Marchand's early years in the league, his production is exactly, almost to the point, the same as Marco Rossi.
Yeah, totally different players. So,
right.
But you're right. The point is more on the development path that at this point, and it's kind of the point I was making a few shows ago where I was comparing him to what Kaprizov and Boldy had done in their early playoff runs, that I just don't think you want to overreact to. And a playoff where he was on the fourth line and still managed to contribute. So that doesn't mean that either the Wild have given up on this guy or that the guy can't play. I actually take the Wild at face value a little bit more with this, that yes, they would have wanted more from Marco Rossi going into that series, but it was as much how well Ryan Hartman was playing as it was how lousy Marco Rossi was playing. It was more how good Hartman was. And to me, the only thing that makes you scratch your head is that it was the comparison to like the Gaudreau-Nyquist combo, that the fact that they put Marco in a spot where he played even less than those guys. That still makes me wonder just a little bit. But the bottom line is that they haven't given up on this guy. And as I've felt from day one, like they don't have to trade him. So if the value isn't what they want, they can just keep him. This is not like it was when it was Kevin Fiala, where they had to trade him. It just wouldn't shock me if the deal's not right. Find a way to make a deal with Marco to keep him in the fold, and maybe you revisit it a year from now if all of a sudden he has another good year.
Yeah, and let's talk about that right now. To your point, if you don't get the deal that you want before July 1, if you're the Wild, you call their bluff and say, all right, let's see if you get that offer sheet that you think you can get. If let's put it this way. Again, if the Wild feel like the trade interest or what they're being offered in return isn't appropriate, then maybe you also think that they're bluffing, that they're going to be able to get an offer sheet if it doesn't look like a lot of teams have a lot of interest in him. That who's giving him that $7 million deal he's so covet. So it will be interesting if this contract dispute, especially because again he doesn't have ARB rights, and sometimes ARB is good because at least it gets a resolution. Could this go deep into the summer? The reason why this is really interesting now is the Brock Nelson situation. Like before this, the calculus has changed here with Brock Nelson signing with Colorado, because now the Wild really can't trade Marco for that high scoring winger and then try to go get a center in a secondary type of deal, or knowing that Brock Nelson was coming to Minnesota, that would be your center. So now they feel like, I think, that they either got to trade Marco for a center that can play right now, or know for a fact that if you're trading Marco either for futures or that scoring winger, that you can get a center in a secondary deal right away. If you look at free agency, Bennett he's going to either resign in Florida or he's going somewhere, I think, else at a ton of money. But then from their point on, there's not a lot of really quality centers out there. I think you and I both look at Michael Granlund as being more of a winger. I don't think the Wild are going after him. Matt Duchene and John Hines have been together before. I don't think it was great. So my guess is Matt Duchene's not an option. I got to think John Tavares, they're going to try to re-sign him in Toronto, or you're going to have to pay him significant dollars. There's just not a lot out there in terms of centers. So now you look at the trade market. There's, I get the impression from that Vancouver is not looking, even though they have until July 1 to before Elias Pettersson's full no trade kicks in. I think that they're not looking to trade him right now. So Elias Pettersson's probably out. If I'm the Wild, I probably call the Islanders now that they have a new GM and check in on Bo Horvat and Marty and Matthew Barzal. Calgary, I think, has some interest in Marco Rossi. Nazem Kadri, your guy, he could be available. Problem is he controls where he wants to go, but he'd be definitely, I would think, a Bill Guerin type player. Zibanejad, I don't think that he wants to waive his no trade, but we know that he's buddies with Zuccarello. We know his buddy Chris Kreider is about to be traded to Anaheim. So would Zibanejad waive to come to Minnesota? Is that something? Braden Shen, again, no trade. There's guys like Jared McGann, maybe Matty Beniers. There are some centers out there. I just don't know, how you're getting them, frankly.
Yeah, that's a lot of names you just threw out there. And there's some of them that not really digging into exactly what the numbers might be. There's a few of them that I'd be really intrigued with in terms of them as a player. But obviously, this isn't meant to sound elementary, but it all comes down to, what it would take to get them. And I don't know how many of those guys are realistic possibilities for Minnesota. In terms of Rossi with the offer sheet, I think if you go to that point, you have to have done the calculation to say, like, what would be the number where we would just say, all right, the compensation package is better. And you had said earlier that they would be in a spot where they would definitely want a player, not futures. Well, if you let them go to an offer sheet, your compensation is futures, not players. So I think that's a dangerous spot to go unless you are pretty sure that the number that's going to be on the offer sheet is something you'd match.
Right. Yeah. And most likely, I don't know. I mean, most likely it's not, I would think, because then, I don't know. I mean, I think Marco would love to stay, but I do think he's pretty much hurt. I think he just wants to be paid what he feels like his price is, is comparable to other players of his stature. And if you look at the numbers, it is in that 6.5, 7, even higher range. If you look at guys like Dylan Cousins and players like that. I just think it's really interesting. Like, I don't know. There just will come a point if the Wild is I just do wonder, even though he doesn't want to take a bridge deal now because he doesn't trust him, If all of a sudden the Wild came in with a bridge deal that was a high AAV, sometimes if you're, what you got to do then is trust the team. Like if let's say the Wild offer him a 2-year deal at 6 per, okay, they're not going to then throw him on the third and fourth line for the next 2 years. You're not paying a guy that like that to be on your fourth line. So I think then if you're Marco, you've got to trust that, all right, I'm going to come in, do what I did this past year, prove that I should be a top 6 center, especially on this team that doesn't have a lot of center depth, and just trust it. And so that's the only way I could ever see a resolution. Like the Wild are not giving him a 7-year deal in the $7 million range. I just don't think that they want to go anywhere near Boldy's contract. And to your point before, if they don't think that he's somebody that they can win long-term with in the playoffs, you're not going to commit a 7-year deal to somebody like that at that type of AAV. He's already turned down the midterm range, the 5x5. I don't think he's going to, now that's, even if that came back on the table, I don't think he's going to take it. But I think the only way there's ever going to be a resolution is some sort of short-term deal that both parties can punt this down the line. But I do think for the short-term deal that the Wild offered, which I believe was below $5 million, they would have to come up significantly in that number for him to ever even consider that. What do you think?
And the emotions part is tough to read. You've talked to his camp at least, or have had communication with them a lot more than I have. So I don't know. You'd like to think that guys would be able to put that aside and make the logical decision. I'm sure they will eventually be able to do that, but I don't know what that. I mean, emotions are real. These are people. You're not talking about some kind of simulation where you're Stratomatic, where your player is a card. It's a real person, and then I don't know where you go from that. I mean, let's say that's real, and you are hurt and insulted by the way things went in the playoffs. But we've talked about this a lot when it comes to negotiations. It's a strange dynamic because you sit across the table, like whether it's arbitration or just the negotiation, and you have somebody tell you, you're worth less, you're worth less, you're worth less, you're worth less, you can't do this, you can't do that, you didn't do this, we need more of this. And then all of a sudden, as soon as you're signed, it's, you're our guy, you're the guy we want, you're the guy we wanted all along, we need you to be the man. I mean, it's just a different dynamic.
Yeah, I agree. It is. And we'll see where it goes. I mean, again, they if they're going to trade him, they want to make sure that they are not making their team worse. And I think they've got a lot of balls in the air. They've got plenty of time to materialize this with the draft coming up around the 27th, 28th ish, and then free agency starting July 1. But we'll see where it goes. I just think it's more likely that they solve their center issue now in the trade market rather than free agent market now that Brock Nelson's off the board. And what complicates things is that a team that's looking to improve at center wants to get rid of one of their bright young centers. So we'll see where this goes. Anthony, before we go on and talk Vinny's thoughts after the next break, and I want to talk to you about the collective bargaining agreement and some USA hockey stuff. Last time we talked, we insinuated that Marcus Johansson was going to re-sign. The Wild got him on essentially almost a league minimum type deal, 1 year, $800,000. It was interesting. The reaction was very mixed. You're either on one side, like, this is a great deal, $800,000. I'd take Marcus Johansson back at that, is the way some fans felt. And then the others, like, I know it's a good deal, but my God, move along already. Get somebody else. Get some fresh blood in here. Go with Liam Ogren. Something else. I know that you like him as a player. Do you think this was worth re-signing him, or would you have just said, all right, let's just move on and get a different type of player in that spot?
I would have signed him for sure, just because of the fact that the value is the price point was so good that the value is worth it. Even if he ends up being your 13th forward, that's worth it. And this allows you a chance to, you haven't broken the bank. So give Liam Ogren the chance to earn that spot, give him every opportunity. And if he doesn't, you got a guy that is capable of playing every night. And if he does, you haven't spent too much money for a guy that is the fourth liner or an extra guy.
Yeah. I see where you come from there. I just I don't know. I I think it's a great deal. It does concern me. I think his only options or his only desires, let's put it this way, was either re-signing with the Wild or going back and finishing his career with Farstad in Sweden. And obviously, he chose the Wild deal. And I just wonder what his motivation level is going to be. Sometimes that would concern me if a guy's like, I'll either go back to Sweden or re-sign with you, and then he's willing to take just a cheap deal. So we'll see where it goes. I just hope that that they put him in the bottom six and not the top six. I think it's time to change things. I just think.
Well, I think that's the plan, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
they're
that's
not
the
looking at
plan,
him
but
as a
sometimes
top six player.
the one thing this organization continually shows me is that they always go back to the old well almost on everything. And you could even use the Freddie Gaudreau, Marco Rossi comparison in the playoffs. The fact that they just refused to admit that Freddie Gaudreau was doing absolutely nothing and we're still going to play him over Marco. I just think sometimes it's just easier. Like, all right, they trust Marcus. And they've had him in that top six spot. I mean, for a guy that was in the top six pretty much every second last year, didn't exactly produce like most top six wingers. And I just think that, when you trust a guy, when a coach trusts him, like this is multiple coaches now that have trusted him. So obviously they see something in him. I think sometimes they go with that. And I'm not even sure Ogren's going to be on the team. Like I would not shock me again if Marco's going to go in one trade and you still want to improve in others. You've already traded a ton of draft picks. You're going to have to start trading prospects, and I do think that Liam Ogren can even be a trade chip this offseason. So, it's just too early to really predict exactly what next year's roster is going to look like. But I'm not convinced that just because they're saying that he's going to be a third line X or whatever, that he's going to be there. I think the one thing that we've learned about Marcus is that he's I don't know if he's your prototypical third line guy.
Well, I don't know that he's a prototypical third line guy, but I think you've got a chance to in a league right now where depth is so important. You got a chance to get a known commodity veteran guy for less than $1 million a year. I think you take that for sure. And he's a guy that has shown that you can count on him. Certainly not over a long term would a contending team want to put him in their top six, but he's proven that I thought his playoffs were some of his best games of the year. And if, let's say it's 2 weeks where somebody's banged up, or it's a night where somebody's not going, or somebody gets injured during a game, and you can throw him up in a top six spot and his skating and his speed can still be a factor. But then on most nights, maybe he's a fourth line guy.
We'll see. He's definitely not a prototypical fourth line. He's definitely not a prototypical fourth line. You guys you and I are always going to disagree on Marcus Johansson. Like, I just refuse to. Like, I agree with you. He played well in the playoffs. He also had no goals. That's Marcus Johansson. Like,
no, I know, but I'm saying at $800,000, it's not.
I'm just saying. Like this is why sometimes I do think that it's time to just move on. Like, what you're getting. You're getting a guy that played second line left wing all year long and scored 11 goals and had 34 points in 72 games. He had 0 goals, 2 assists in 5 playoff games. Like, at some point, production matters too in a top six role. And if he's going to wind up on that second line left wing, which I just think that they're always going to go back to that when there's an injury or something else doesn't work, I just don't know if it's worth it. We'll see. I mean, I don't disagree with you on the price. And he's a quality veteran and all that.
That if you start to look around the league, find other veteran guys that are, let's say a 35 to 42 type point guy. I mean, that's what $2 million costs in this league right now, and that's what they spent for him. So, and last year was different because $2 million. The Wild had to be looking for guys that were going to bang for the buck, bring more, because they were playing $15 million under the cap. They don't have to do that anymore. So now they have the ability to spend to the cap, but you still need those extra guys that, look at the guys we're talking about in Florida in the bottom of their lineup, and having depth guys that have proven they can play in the NHL, and he's done that. So yes, if you were going into a season saying we're going to try to make a run for the cup and Marcus Johansson is going to be our second line left wing, I'd say you're probably short. But if Marcus Johansson is your fourth line left wing or your 13th forward that on occasion can play in the top six, then I think I could see that being a good fit.
Yeah. I mean, again, 800 grand is 800 grand. I don't disagree there. I'm just talking, the other side of it. I just hope that we're not going to see him on that second line left wing all year. And I do think the Wild sometimes go back to what they know, and we've seen that over again. Let's take a quick break, and we'll have a quick final segment.
And I want to tell you about Twill in the Edina Galleria. Scott Dayton's Twill in the Edina Galleria. TwillMN.com is the website. I'm wearing my Johnny O hat. I'm wearing one of my many Peter Millar shirts. Johnny L and Peter Millar are two of my favorite brands out of Twill in the Edina Galleria. When I've been going to Wolves games lately, I've been wearing my Dingman shoes. I've been wearing my Brax pants, my either Peter Millar or Johnny O shirts, pullovers. The Wolves games are weird because they're really cold, and then they turn on the fire jets before the game and singe your eyebrows. You need to be prepared for all kinds of different temperatures in that building. And I just use all my Twill stuff. And as we do more shows here at TalkNorth.com on video, I'll be wearing more Twill stuff because it's really simple. I don't always try to look good. Sometimes I'm very happy being a slob, and I wear old sweats and T-shirts. If I'm trying to look presentable in any way, Talk North meetings, sponsor meetings, big games, going out in public, going out to dinner, I just put on something I bought at Twill. It's just that simple. If I put on something I bought at Twill, I'm going to look good. I'm playing a Randy Shavers golf tournament on Monday. I'm going to wear Twill stuff to that too. Golf, walk around town, dinner, whatever. TwillMN.com. Go to Twill in the Edina Galleria. They're laid back. They love talking sports. They're nice people. Tell them we sent you. You'll have a good time, and you'll end up walking out with something great.
If you're looking for a refreshing THC drink, well, check out Giggly. It tastes like your favorite cocktail with no aftertaste and just pure, bold flavor. It's made with real fruit juice and all natural ingredients. It's a Minnesota-made gem. You can find it at liquor stores and Quick Trip locations across Minnesota, or get it shipped nationwide. Plus, with a new low pricing and low-calorie options, it's the perfect guilt-free sip. Try Giggly today.
It's time for change. Experience better banking at Royal Credit Union and put your financial goals in motion with helpful tools and personal support. Get started at rcu.org/time. Insured by NCUA.
Back here, worst seats in the house. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta. We went long on the second segment, so this will be a bit of a shorty. Anthony, USA Hockey, their top six players will be announced as early as Monday. My guess is they go with the first guys for the Olympics. I'm saying my guess is they go with sort of what they had last time, with one notable change, if I had to guess. And I did a story on this today in The Athletic. But my guess is that you're obviously going to have Austin Matthews, who's the captain. I don't think they take the captaincy off of him, but to me, the real captain is probably Matthew Tkachuk. He'll be on the top six. I would think Jack Eichel would be on the top six, Quinn Hughes and Charlie McAvoy on the top six. The one big change that I could see is Brady Tkachuk, who I thought was their best player at the Four Nations, brought the most energy, the physicality, tied Jake Ensel in the team lead with goals. My guess is that he's in the top six and Adam Fox won't be, because also I don't think Adam Fox is a lock to make the team anymore. I know that he plays now for Mike Sullivan, but I think he's going to have to play himself onto the team. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think I think Brady Tkachuk's a lock. I would not take Adam Fox if I was the guy building the roster. So, the top six are, I think it's pretty, I'm not going to say, it's not easy to name the top six, but the top six are all going to be guys that are no-brainers to make the team. Obviously, that's why they're naming them right now. But I don't know how. I don't know how.
To your point, that's why I don't think Adam Fox is going to be part. I think that'll be the one change. You can't lock him in. And just so everybody knows, so they'll have like a 40 to 45 man orientation camp later in the summer. So a lot of guys will be invited that are Olympic hopefuls. So we will get to see guys like Tage Thompson and Clayton Keller and probably Jason Robertson and Matty Beniers, Cole Caulfield, players like that go there. On the blue line, I've got to think McAvoy, Quinn Hughes, Werenski, Jacob Slavin, Brock Faber, and Jake Sanderson are locks. You could bring 2 extra defensemen. Obviously, Fox will be in the mix. Hannafin was in the mix. He was also in the Four Nations. And then one player that I've covered here that has been really good is Seth Jones. I got to think he'll be invited to the camp in Plymouth. Maybe guys like Lane Hudson and even Z Boyum, Keandre Miller, Jackson Lacombe, Ryan McDonough, players like that. Neil Pionk is somebody else as well, who I thought really had a good year. And then the 3 goalies and a couple others as well.
I like Hannafin the most out of all those guys that you just listed. And then I think it just depends on how you see your team being built, because I know the last time, if there was a regrettable decision, it might have been some of the veteran, the thought being like the shutdown, the penalty killers, the 3rd, 4th line guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'd be mildly hesitant, but because the other guy that intrigued me out of that list you just said was Ryan McDonough. And he had a terrific year this year, and would be a great guy that you could depend on in just about any role on a team like this. But he is on the back end of the career for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. Another really good young player is Alex Vlasic, that I think that they definitely have interest in. Real quick before we go to Vinny's thoughts, Anthony, collective bargaining agreement, the negotiations, they are meeting every day during the Stanley Cup Final. It is getting to the very end. They have a couple I's to dot and T's to cross. I don't think there are any major issues. The one thing that's very clear is they're not addressing the state income tax situation that a lot of people think is an issue in the league. I am not really one of those people. But LTIR, that is something that I think that they're clearly addressing. I think there's going to be some sort of playoff salary cap, so teams can no longer, essentially have payrolls in the playoffs of, significantly higher than what would be a regular season cap. We're seeing that even with Florida right now. They had a bunch of guys on LTIR. They make a trade for Marchand, Seth Jones, and players like that. So that's one. 84 game schedule is something that could be coming to the NHL, but what's weird is that they would start the season earlier, Anthony, but end at the same time. So they're not going to try to condense it. They're just going to give teams essentially more days off in the middle of the year and continue to award the cup late. I think it's getting too late, Anthony. What do you think? I mean, the fact that I was talking to Carter Verhaeghe yesterday in a one-on-one for this story that I'm writing, and how hard it was for him to, after winning the cup last year, just train in a short off season and get ready for the season right away in September. Obviously that's one player on one team, and not everybody has that, but it just sure seems like they could condense the schedule even more and award the cup by June 1st every year.
Yeah, I'd like to see that for sure. Have it be over by the end of the first week of June, I think would be ideal. And 84 games I'm not opposed to. I think the math on the balance is better because it allows you don't have any divisional teams then that you only play 3 times. Now that all changes if there's expansion around the horizon, around the corner on the horizon, like it seems like there is. But at least for now, adding 84 games, it makes a great symmetrical schedule where you play all your divisional teams 4 times and conference teams 3 and the other conference 2. And I think that would be perfect. But I would love to see it. Now, the problem is that with years like this, where there's an Olympic break, it makes it tough to push that ending point back. But you can do it. It just makes for a more rigorous schedule. And it's in a non-Olympic year, I think it's a no-brainer to start a week earlier and end the season 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah. By the way, I'm in the process of booking my travel for Milan next year. We're going to have to do like 5 shows when I'm in Milan, Anthony, for the Olympics. Like I leave like February 1st and come back the end of the month. So that'll be interesting. Let's get to Vinny's thoughts and then we'll wrap up the show. What has he got for us this week?
Yeah, he's got a couple interesting ones, and one we kind of hit on a little bit already with just the mediocrity of this year's free agent class. And his question is it unfortunate timing for Billy's plan to take effect this year when the free agent class just doesn't have the names and the attractive options that some other years would have.
Yeah, and like, look, I hate, like, Wild fans have waited so long for this that I hate to say wait another year, because the problem is too, Anthony, is that, like, while next year's lister is really, really sexy, with like McDavid and Kaprizov and Eichel and all these guys, the reality is we both know that it's, at the end of the day, if teams want to keep their players, they're going to extend them this summer or in the middle of next year, and next year's free agent class will be underwhelming as well. Like, teams keep the players they want to keep. And then the other thing is, with everybody having incredible cap space now as the cap continues to climb and climb and climb in the league, what is drawing those players to Minnesota? Like if Jack Eichel is on the free agent market, sorry, everybody, he's going to Boston or something. He's not signing in Minnesota. And that's the problem. That's where the Wild have to get to, is they have to now, like, that to me is what Bill Guerin's got to now achieve here, is turn this team into a destination, make players want to come to Minnesota. You right now, I'm sorry, when I talk to players and they ask me about Minnesota, their opinion is always, they're always in the middle. They can't get over the hump. This is the perception out there when you have 8 first-round exits in the last 10 years. And that's something that's got to change. And so I don't know. I don't know how they handle this. And that's why, to me, the trade market is the best route for them to go. And that's why the David Juracek trade still concerns the heck out of me, when you give up that many assets for a player that Craig Button even said publicly to Joe Smith he doesn't even think is going to be a top 4 defenseman, that he thinks he's a third pair guy. That's a lot of assets to give up when you could be using it for other things. And so I just, but to Vinny's point, this is a year where Billy's going to have to make the right moves, and it's probably going to have to be via trade, because you look at the free agents and there's just nothing there, like nothing. Like, if you look at one of those guys, Anthony, other than maybe Mitch Marner, is there somebody that you would go out and give a fortune to come to Minnesota on a 7-year deal? I don't think so. Do you?
Probably not on a 7-year deal. I agree. I just don't think I don't know. I mean, it all is dependent on what the price is, because even though he has some money to spend, it's not like he has an unlimited fund here available. So
16 mil.
Yeah,
and that's 16 total. Like again, as we saw this year, the Wild better leave themselves some space. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to go to another year of just LTI, and all that type of stuff. Right. So they really got 13 or 14 to spend. So
another of his questions I think is interesting, and you've been the one watching this more closely than me. So he says, watching Florida play, and I'd just say you could add the other teams that have been in it here at the end. Let's say the teams in the Final Four. Realistically, how close can the Wild get to competing at that level as soon as next year? And now it isn't apples to apples, because you're comparing teams playing in June. That's not how teams play night in, night out all year long, for sure. But there is something when you look at the speed of like, I thought game 1, it might have been the fastest hockey game I've ever watched.
Yeah. Well, how about the first period of game 2? Oh my Lord. I was talking to somebody that was part of that game. It's like, in my 27 years in this league, I've never seen anything like that. That was down on the ice. So I mean, look, I look at the Western Conference right now as there is no perfect team other than me, and even Edmonton is not perfect. But I look at that, like, every team has warts right now. Every team. The one team that's really going to be interesting is LA. Like, LA just feels like with Ken Holland there at his age, he's going to make some bold moves to try to turn them into a contender. I'd be interested to see what they do this offseason. But there are teams on the rise like Utah, San Jose, Anaheim, teams like that. But you look at Colorado. I mean, they are still chasing it. They just look on that point of, like, it just almost feels like everything can crumble there. after this Rantanen trade and just some of the issues that they've got inside that organization. Dallas, I think, is just shocked that they didn't get over the hump again, and clearly they are going to make some interesting moves. They have major cap issues this year. They got to hire a new coach. Lots of reports out there that they're going to trade Jason Robertson. Winnipeg, as we saw, couldn't get over the hump. There's just no team out there that to me doesn't have unbelievable warts in this conference. So to that point, I don't think that it's, an impossibility that with the right moves, the Wild could put themselves on a forefront to actually go on a run.
Yeah, I thought, and I've made this comment many times throughout the season, I thought Dallas and Vegas were the two most completely built teams coming into the season. I think Vegas in the Wild series, we saw that they were that team just isn't as scary as we thought going into the series that they might be. I thought Minnesota was the better team in that series, and Dallas, to fall short again this year, and now yes, anytime you bring in a new coach to a team that close, to some degree you're starting over, and I still think their roster is a handful, but I think we also saw that it's not quite as airtight as perhaps we thought. And Vinny's last thought actually relates to that. He just said, with the way DeBoer was taken out in Dallas, it seemed bizarre, but it clearly was an indicator of some things that weren't far beneath the surface there. Otherwise, you don't make a coaching change just because of one comment about his goaltender. And so now, what do other GMs think of something like that? Do they wonder if, is this guy the right guy? Or do you think how much he's won everywhere else will trump that?
He will get another job. He'll be first out of the gate next year, but he has proven that he has a 2.5, 3 year shelf life. He could take you over this, like if you're the Minnesota Wild and you haven't gotten past the first round and suddenly you get off to a slow start next year, would it be without the realm of possibility to say, all right, let's get the guy that gets to the conference final 6 out of the last 8 years? I don't think it is. But you got to know that behind the scenes, he must be really, really somebody that grates on you to the point that the players can't take it anymore. Because I think there was a lot of backlash from the way that he treated Jake Ottinger during the game and afterwards, continually piling on from inside that locker room that led to his demise. And this just happens over and over and over again. I mean, you have a coach that is constantly fired, that all he does is get to the conference final. It says something about I think probably him and his personality and how long you could deal with him inside your team. But if you want somebody that's going to get you over the hump, he's a fantastic coach. I just don't know, how long. You can't expect him that he's going to be inside that organization as long as, say, John Cooper. Let's put it that way. So,
right. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting, but it clearly was, and it's not something that I maybe you had heard more about it. I hadn't heard anything that would have led me to believe that there was that going on behind the scenes in Dallas, but it had to have been, because I just don't think the one comment about his goaltender would not be enough to say, all right, it's time for a new voice here.
No. And Jim Nill indicated that there was a lot of other stuff. I think that they just didn't want him also going into the last year of their deal, but they weren't also ready to commit to an extension. But I do think that the way that he treated a guy that they just signed long-term bothered a lot of people. The optics of him sort of, when Jake Ottinger at the end of the first intermission was greeting all his teammates onto the ice to begin that second period, and Pete DeBoer just walked right by him without even looking, and they didn't even, there was no fist bump, nothing. I think that optic had to bother a lot of people. It just did not look right, and you just can't treat your person like that. And, Pete is a very smart guy, and part of me just wonders if he knew that this was sort of the beginning of the end, and he just decided, all right, I'm going to get myself into the open market. Who knows? Remember, they also waited to fire him right after Boston and Pittsburgh made their coaching decisions. So they also left him with no opportunities.
Yeah, that part was interesting.
So he'll take the summer off. He'll be first out of the gate next year. Somebody that gets off to a bad start is going to probably call him right away. Like he is coming. There's no doubt about it. Good show, Anthony. Thanks, Davide from Italy, from On Vacation, producing this show. Thanks to our sponsors, Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems, Clamshell Beach Resorts, Giggly THC Beverages, Onyx Maps, Twill in the Edina Galleria, and Royal Credit Union. Talk to you next week, everybody.
So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world